So I will continue talking about languages without a caritive proper. And well, this time we're speaking about actually a related language, language Gban. It is also a Manda language, although from a different branch. And it is spoken in the central part of Côte d'Ivoire. My study is based on field data from Bovo dialect, and I would like to dedicate this talk to my late friend Takio Robert, who was a speaker of the Bovo dialect of Gban, a Gban literacy worker, and a great enthusiast and promoter for Gban language. And he worked with me as a consultant throughout almost a decade, and he was the main source of data for all my studies on Gban, including this one. Okay, so what do I have to say about expressing caritive in Gban? Well, Gban has no specialized markers to express caritive semantics, neither affixes nor adpositions. The end. Thank you so much. Okay, well, that's not all. In fact, although it doesn't have any specialized markers, it does employ some non-specialized, some so-called periphrastic means. Much of what was already spoiled by Dasha, but I hope it will be of some interest nonetheless. In any language, there sometimes is a need to express such thing as absence or non-participation of someone or something in a situation. And Gban does express things like that too. To give just one illustration, here is a translation of "people can't work without a leader," which was rendered in Gban as literally, if there's no leader, work doesn't go well. Okay, so there is a small additional note that this lack of caritive, specialized caritive markers is probably connected to the general lack of low-level negation markers in Gban and in related languages and in neighboring languages. So it is probably a very broad areal feature not to grammaticalize anything that expresses low-level negation. Well, probably that is a very bold claim, but there is at least some tendency in this area. Okay, so we may look at what these periphrastic means are, how they function, and how they compete with each other. Also, please tell me if I'm speaking too loud. This may be the case. Okay. And in the end of the talk, there will also be a separate short case study of a specialized marker, but alas, not quite caritive marker. Okay. The study is based mostly on elicited data, which consists of sentences translated from French stimuli with the preposition "sans" in different uses. So basically, this is what I did. I took many sentences with the French caritive preposition "sans," and I tried to ask the speaker to translate them and see what happens. So first, we will speak about multi-clausal periphrases. Next, we will turn to the use of the commutative postposition with clausal negation. And in the end, I will present this case study of the unit le. So the most frequent means of rendering caritive semantics in my data were different types of multi-clausal periphrases. In such periphrases, the main predication was expressed in one clause, and the secondary predication of absence of non-participation in a separate clause. In the monograph by Stolz and co-authors, this would fall into type B. So the languages where caritive is expressed by a combination of commutative and negation. And many observed periphrases in Gban involved one of the standard nonverbal constructions, either negative existential, or negative identifying, or negative pregative possessive construction. And let us first look at these constructions separately in their standard autonomous uses. So we are not speaking about caritive uses yet. So the general means of expressing existence in Gban is the following construction. For example, God exists. Literally, it's God is there. And its negative counterpart is the same, although there is a slight difference. The copula to be, the verb to be, is changed in the negative sentences to a suppletive verb ta. But the rest is the same. So there aren't none left. Is rendered as any of them isn't there. Okay. Yes, and I also can comment on this contracted form here. Taye very frequently becomes te, and it does that a lot and shows some probably some signs of ongoing grammaticalization, so of becoming a single negative existential or possessive copula te. For identification, Gban uses construction with a non-verbal copula yo, which is switched to a verbal copula ni in all non-affirmative indicative contexts. Okay, so this is probably just some technical details. So actually, these are two very close counterparts. Who's this? This is Soku. It's a topic-oriented identifying construction. So normally it is used without the first thing which is identified. It is just omitted because it's given in the topic. So as for the person under discussion, this is Soku. Or that thief that we're discussing, it is also not expressed in the sentence. It's not so cool. And now turning to predicative possession, there are two affirmative predicative possessive constructions in Gban, which you can see in the examples. The first one looks as existential construction, but with a possessive noun phrase in the beginning. So literally, to say John has a field, you say there's John's field. Or to say I have a house, you say there's my house, as in 7a. And in 6 and 7b is presented the second construction with the postposition com, which can be paraphrased as something is on me, in my hand. So John has a field, field is on John. I have a house, house is on me. And their negative counterparts are the same, just with equivalent negative markers. John's car doesn't exist, or car isn't on John. Now, in caritive contexts, when such a device is used, it is actually used in an ancillary clause, so an additional clause, which is subordinate or coordinated to the semantically main clause. For example, to say without a car, he can't go there, you can say if it's not a car, he can't go there. Something probably similar to English, but for a car, he can't go there. And here you can see that it is actually a negative identification construction that we saw 2 slides ago. Another example, which was at the very beginning of the talk, people can't work without a leader, is paraphrased with an existential clause, an existential construction. If there's no leader, work doesn't go well or won't go well. And finally, this example, he's working without a hoe, is rendered as simply he doesn't have a hoe on him and he's working. So with a negative possessive construction of the second type. The hoe isn't on him and he's working. As you could see from these three illustrations, this construction is integrated into a subordinate, into either a subordinate conditional clause or into a coordinate indicative clause. And this difference is fully predetermined by the type, the semantic type of the context. Some of these contexts are realis, so they are concrete, they're non-conditional. In this case, it's just a coordinate indicative clause, like in 11. So he's working without a hoe, it's something real which happens in the real world now. And we're using here a coordinated structure. He doesn't have a hoe and he's working. While when we have some generic or conditional contexts, such as people can't work without a leader in general, right? Or without a car, he can't go there. It's a conditional, semantically a conditional example. In these cases, we see an explicit conditional construction in Gban, which is in a subordinate clause. All right. Plus, there are, of course, some lesser types, and the real data is very various, and there are more types. I just can't show them all to you in this talk. And also there are just fully lexical means. Of course, they can also be employed with a greater or lesser loss of semantic detail in that case. For example, he's working without a hoe. If we render it as before, as he doesn't have a hoe and he's working, this is more or less semantically the same. But it, of course, can always be rendered as he's working barehanded without expressing the idea of the type of instrument and anything, just without anything in his head. So here, of course, we have some loss of semantics. And the same thing in he came without his brother was sometimes rendered as he came alone. Or the bus departed without me as the bus left me. Okay, so this is all very very probably banal. What is more interesting is the use of commutative with causal negation, and this is the second most frequent strategy in Gban. In many cases, a monoclausal construction was employed, which contained a standard commutative instrumental postposition yeah, and a standard causal negation marker. That would fall into type B by Stolz and Corthes. And I'm understanding now that first time when I was mentioning type B, I gave a wrong description. At that point, there was the type with a separate verbal clause, right? While in this case, this is the type that consists of commutative plus a negation. And first of all, let's look at standard non-caritive uses of yeah. So here we have two examples of yeah in the commutative proper use, companion use. In 12, normally Soku comes to my place with his wife. So wife is a secondary agent in this situation. And in 13, we see an instrumental use of yeah. I cut wood with a knife. And when we need to express similar contexts, but with Caritive semantics, we can use here with sentential causal negation. For example, he's working without a hoe. This time is rendered as literally he isn't working with a hoe. Or given that constituent negation is syntactically impossible in Gban, so negation with a narrow focus is too expressed by clausal negation, it can also be understood as he's working not with a hoe, but with something else. But as I will show later, these examples do not express the semantics that he's working not with a hoe or he isn't working with a hoe do in English or Russian. So don't be fooled by appearance here. Okay, two more examples. Mary is working without John. Literally, Mary isn't working with John. Or here I also show a more lexical way. So a way belonging to the previous section. Mary is working without John. As Mary is working today, John isn't alongside her. Okay, so that's not our main topic now. Finally, an example with possession. This morning he came to the market without money. He forgot it. Literally, he didn't come to the market with money. What is important is that semantically such structures in Gban do not involve an indication of non-existence of the situation, nor metalinguistic negation, nor an indication that the situation included some other participant with the same role. All these things that are associated with similar constructions in Russian or English. For example, in Gban, such a sentence can be naturally continued with a sentence presupposing that the situation in question did in fact occur. So we can say literally, yesterday he didn't work with a hoe. It was a very tiring work. So it turns out he did work, but without a hoe. For example, he weeded with his hands. Or another probably more convincing example, we can say he didn't come to the market with money, but his friend lent him some money at the market, which would be impossible in English or Russian, right? So this does indeed mean this morning he came to the market, although without money, but his friend lent him some at the market, so he could make his, could buy his things. As I said, this differs from the situation in Russian or English. In Russian and English, such a combination of commutative preposition with any negation, clausal or constituent, always has some of these properties that I mentioned, either negating the whole situation, or metalinguistic negation, or narrow focus negation. So он не работает мотыгой, or он не пришел на рынок с деньгами, he isn't working with a hoe, he didn't come to the market with money, are either strange, weird sounding, or they would involve the negation of the whole situation, so he didn't come at all, or he isn't working at all, or they would be cases of metalinguistic negation in Russian and English. Like when we argue, for example, with somebody, he came to the market with money. No, he didn't come to the market with money. So, with the constituent negation, with narrow focus negation, that would always mean, for example, he doesn't work with a hoe, but with a shovel. Он пришел на рынок не с деньгами, а с пистолетом. He didn't come to the market with money, but with a pistol. That would involve a high-level negation with a narrow focus. So it isn't true, in general, that he came to the market with money. He came to the market with something else. But in Gban, as we saw, this is not the case. These sentences could as well mean just simply he came to the market without money, or he works without a hoe, without anything. All right, and as I already said, in Russian or English, as far as I understand, such continuation as we saw in Gban would be impossible. Он пришел на рынок не с деньгами, но его друг одолжил ему немного. Okay.
Maxim, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Question time.
Yeah, question time, but you
Good,
can
I will borrow
talking.
some more time if I may. So we can say that in those examples that we saw with the market and with hoeing, in fact, Gban, although it uses syntactically sentential clausal negation plus a commutative marker, it does in fact express a low-level negation, just the way normal caritives do in languages with normal caritive markers. Okay, so a small note is that I leave beyond this discussion attributive uses, which were present in Dasha's talk. In Gban, I will just say shortly that in Gban, in such attributive uses, relative constructions will be used too. Okay, and finally, this small case study of Ble. While, as we saw, Gban lacks a specialized marker for caritive semantics, it has a peculiar specialized marker for related sense. And so this marker sometimes appeared in translations of caritive stimuli. For example, for the stimulus, "You're eating without me," or "Soku wants to celebrate his birthday with his family and without his friends," or "The bus departed without you." In all these cases, there were translations with ble, with the postposition ble. However, further investigations showed that, in fact, this postposition does not convey a caritive semantic component proper, non-participation in the situation, but it conveys only the lack of conscious perception of the situation by the participant. So it's not Mary's traveling abroad without her child, in fact, but it's rather Mary's traveling abroad without her child knowing. And we can compare this to preposition-like expressions in Russian and French, à l'insu de, and без ведома X. So without X knowing. And there are also two postposition-like expressions that are derived from ble, bleo and blea, with the postposition in and a postposition on glued onto ble. And these surprisingly elaborate even further on this semantic zone, giving additional meaning nuances such as unexpectedness or someone's forgetfulness, someone's oversight. So, for example, in 18, Soku ate his totem food, which is considered very bad, not knowing it. So he forgot not to eat it, and he ate it. And this is expressed primarily by Lea. Thank you. These are now my conclusions. So the most frequent means of rendering caritive semantics in my data were multi-clausal periphrases with nonverbal predications. And second, a monoclausal construction with a commutative postposition and a clausal negation marker was used. And importantly, the latter can be shown to indeed convey a low-level negative operator, just as normal caritive markers do, and unlike its literal Russian or English counterparts with negation and commutative. So this pseudo-caritive postposition ble and its relatives do not actually express caritive, but some related meaning with a lack of conscious perception. And I would like to add that probably studying languages without a specialized caritive marker can be fruitful for even the theory of what grammaticalized caritive markers really express, because you give a language stimuli with a single obscure marker, such as son in French, and you have a lot of different ways to translate it, which actually show very well what really does this marker mean. Thank you so much.
Okay, Maxim, thank you very much for your interesting talk. Does anybody have a question? No one has written anything in the chat. No one has risen hand yet. Okay, Sonia, please.
Thank you very much. So my first comment, well, really thank you for your talk, and I think it was a good idea that your and Dasha's talks were one after another. What really surprises me, as it always happens, that so your languages that you study are related to each other. I don't know whether they are closely related or not. And it seems that they have very different strategies. So one of the most probably common strategy that Maxim discussed, this negation of commutative, is almost not used in Loom, as far as I understood. In Loom, they use this Walaba. So, well, for me, it's surprising that two related languages develop different strategies. So, well, I had I have a couple of questions about the last case, about Blair. So first question is probably mentioned or not. Do you know the etymology of this thing?
Not even an idea. It doesn't resemble anything synchronically.
Okay. Do you think that it could be borrowed somehow? I don't know.
Okay, I don't know, frankly speaking.
Okay, and well, another question, question of clarification. Do I understand correctly that you try to ask your speaker about this blur? If you ask something like, they traveled to the city without me, but in context that I knew about that, but I decided not to go with them. In this case, Blair is impossible, right? Or you?
Yes, I'm not sure about exactly example like that, but it should be, yes, it should be impossible.
Okay.
And even even there were some examples, although I'm not fully certain about their interpretation, where I tried to imagine situations where the person actually participated in the situation, but was unconscious, or something was wrong with his perception. For example, he was drunk. And in these cases, at least marginally, Blay is possible.
Okay, well, I had a short comment on this case, but probably your last example proves that it is not correct. So I thought that probably we still could interpret Blair as a kind of caritive marker that marked the absence of companion, but it also adds some additional component of not knowing. But in your last example, there is no absence because the participant participated in it, but was unconscious. So probably then this interpretation doesn't fit.
Yeah, I also had some examples like it rained while he slept. It turns out that it rained, or he got robbed while he was slept, something like that. At least in some of these also it was possible. But it occurred to me today that probably we still could see Blair as some sort of very specialized caritive. while thinking of it as introducing a new participant that could be participating in the situation with a role of, I don't know, experiencer, perceiver, and he is not participating in it with that role. So at least with our definitions, it could fit into this general.
Yeah, we should think about it. Thank you.
Okay, Maxim, thank you very much. It's break time, but I think we can continue talking because no one is supposed to start right now. There's a question from Alena Vitslak-Makarevich, so please.
Thank you, Maxim. Very exciting talk, and working on language with our dedicated marker, I kind of have other kind of questions, I guess. What surprised me is that I would have expected many more periphrasis construction with verbal negation and not non-verbal negation, like existential, so on. Do you think you didn't get them that many because they don't exist, or maybe that's my impression when working on Druli was that that's an artifact of focusing on the questionnaire and maybe core meanings, but when I looked at the corpus, actually, like searched for without, the majority of cases I found were actually the concomitant situation construction with a verbal negation in the absentee clause, like not taking something, not using something, not tasting something, not putting something, and so on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yes, of course. Yes. Sure enough, if I took all uses of French "ça," including the like quasi negative converb uses, such as "sans manger," without eating. I would also get a lot of translations, and I think, yes, they will be with separate clauses. It was just that I did put it in the talk because I considered this use peripheral for the whole Caritive zone, and yeah, so it's not Caritive proper. It's some very peripheral thing that sometimes happens with dedicated Caritive markers, although not always, as in Russian. And do you mean that what would happen if I searched, for example, for all withouts in the corpus, in the translations?
I guess you already answered it, that you get a lot of peripheral usages which are not relevant to the core domain. I kind of was wondering also, like, how frequent the core usages, I mean, get syntactically expressed via those, like by introducing a different verb.
Yeah, actually, I didn't mean by peripheral, I didn't mean peripheral for ban. I just mean here the actually
semantically peripheral, probably, right?
A priori, yes, stance that we've taken, considering this use as peripheral. Yes, more peripheral than he's working with that. But yes, in the corpus there will be a lot of them, and I just didn't put them here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.